Welcome to the virtual solar town hall. My name is Katie Childs Ottenweller. I am the Southeast Director for Vote Solar. Vote Solar is a nonprofit working to bring solar to the mainstream for all, and defending the right to go solar is at the core of what we do. Vote Solar is happy to join with the Florida Solar Energy Industries Association and Solar United Neighbors to host this virtual solar town hall this morning. We brought several speakers together today to talk about the impact of the anti-solar legislation currently pending in the Florida legislature, HB 741 and SB 1024. This virtual solar town hall will help you learn more about the impacts of this legislation, from families and small businesses to solar careers at risk. We welcome all of you joining us online, and we will be watching all of our social channels to see who is joining us and to answer any questions you might have. Please share this virtual town hall live stream on your own social media channel. Simply share on your timeline and invite others to join and learn more about these bills. And please use the comment section in the platform you're viewing and let us know any questions you have. Also, let us know where you're viewing from and share your support for Solar Choice. Now, I'd like to bring in our guests who will help us share how this bill impacts them, their family, and why it needs to be stopped. Please welcome George Riley, the Florida Executive Director of Conservatives for Clean Energy. Good morning, George. Also, welcome Steve Rutherford, the president of Tampa Bay Solar. Hey, Steve.
Hi, Katie.
We also have Bruce Struble, a solar homeowner and advocate. Hi, Bruce. How are you doing?
Hello. Hey, Katie.
And we have Josh Kearns, a board member with the Florida Solar Energy Industries Association, or FLSEIA.
Hey. Yeah. Hey, Katie. Thanks so much for having me.
So I want to kick off our conversation with Steve Rutherford, the president of Tampa Bay Solar. Steve, can you tell us a bit more about your company, how you got started, and why you're so concerned about this proposed legislation?
Thank you, Katie. Thank you for hosting this forum, this important conversation that we're having here in the state of Florida. As Katie said, I'm Steve Rutherford, with the owner of Tampa Bay Solar, and have been so for the last 12 years. We're a 30-person company that has 30% veteran participation. We're also 30% minority participation. So we've been around for a while. We've been enjoying the fruits of what the net metering policy, what we're going to talk about today, have been able to produce over the last 10 years. And we have been hoping to continue to grow here in the state of Florida. We've served the entire Florida state, primarily focused on Central Florida region between Orlando, Naples, and up as far as Ocala. We have been doing so for a while. Primarily 70% of our business is residential installs, and about 30% of our business is currently with commercial installs. So as you're going to talk about more, this topic of net metering, which has been in place since 2008, has enabled us to grow this industry over the last 12 years. And we've been very fortunate to have been able to serve our customers and liberate folks, which is really what we stand for. We're liberators. We call ourselves energy bill liberators because most of us are military folks who come from that background, look at ourselves as liberators of others, and we're trying to liberate folks from a lifetime of utility costs. So thank you for having me. I look forward to talking more as we move on.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you so much for your service. If you're just joining us now in our virtual solar town hall, we are hearing from folks from all over Florida who are concerned about this anti-solar legislation. Next, I want to introduce George Riley, who's the Florida Executive Director of Conservatives for Clean Energy. Hey, George, how are you doing?
Hey, pretty good. Thank you, Katie.
George,
yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about why Conservatives for Clean Energy got concerned about this legislation?
Yeah, well, quite simply that this legislation threatens 40,000 rooftop solar jobs. Uh, but I also want to let you know a little bit about the background of Conservatives for Clean Energy Florida and about myself. Conservatives for Clean Energy Florida is part of a larger group called the Conservative Energy Network that consists of 21 different state groups. We work to educate the public and decision makers on the economic benefits of clean energy and advocate for continued investments in Florida. As for myself, I've worked in conservative politics in the state of Florida since 2008, and I served as executive director of the Republican Party of Florida from 2016 to 2019. And most recently, I have been in my role as state director for CCE Florida since February 2020. In short, CCE Florida is in favor of an all the above strategy for when it comes to approaching energy solutions. We're not anti one form of energy over another. Instead, we want a free market approach for when it comes to energy solutions, and we don't want any one form of energy to be shut out. Katie?
Thank you so much for that, George. It's great to have you on this issue. If you're just joining us, we're hearing from folks supporting solar in Florida. We also have Bruce Struble, a solar homeowner and advocate, joining us today. Bruce, thank you so much for joining us. Can you give us a little background on why you got involved in this issue?
Yes, thank you, Katie. Personally, I'm an environmental justice and sustainability advocate. So issues like this, where we're talking about access and equitable distribution of energy resources, are very important to me. I've been doing this for almost a decade now, and just making sure that communities, particularly communities of color, have access to any technology, any types of developments that will allow them to control their energy costs, and also to have, as we're mindful of issues like global climate change and things of that nature, we want to make sure that people have the ability to take the necessary steps. And on top of all that, I'm also a homeowner with solar on my house. So my family, we made the decision to go solar during the pandemic in 2020. And we used our city's net metering process, and it made it so it was affordable to us. So I would hate to see that taken away from other people, particularly low to moderate income families that are in need of different and creative methods so that they could get solar panels and rooftop solar and have access to the things that they need to control their own energy costs. So I think net metering is important. I think rooftop solar is an important tool in making sure that we have equitable access. Thank you, Kenny.
Thank you so much, Bruce. And finally, I'd like to bring in Josh Kearns, board member with the Florida Solar Energy Industries Association. Josh, you are one of many folks involved in the local Florida solar industry. Can you tell us what it's like right now and what concerns you're hearing?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of concerns. This bill has really, it kind of caught us by surprise in Q4 last year. And, we've been banding together as an industry to really come together. And as part of that industry, we're using our trade organization, which is FLSEIA. So the Florida Solar Energy Industries Association. We've been around since 1977, and we're the nonprofit trade association here in the state of Florida. We have membership consisting of over 110 companies with all things related to solar, from the contractors that are putting everything on the roofs to distributors like ourselves supplying the materials, vendors that manufacture the materials, banking partnerships, and kind of everything in between. And really what we're focused on, are the opportunities that solar is providing for the state, and the impacts of this bill are definitely tangible. We did recent economic impact studies showing the Florida solar industry results in over $18 billion in total economic impact. That's including $3.2 billion in family incomes for Florida workers. More than that $3.2 billion in family income, there's $3.3 billion in federal, state, and local tax revenues that has been generated because of solar. We've got over 40,000 Floridian jobs that are supported by the rooftop solar industry. And that's not strictly the contractors. That's also knowledge-based services, engineering, things like that, government roles to go through everything. We've got to deal with, the permits and everything like that. And then also wholesale trade, construction jobs, the things that people look at the solar industry and see specifically. So with that, Florida's rooftop solar industry, we're ranked the fourth largest in the nation. There's over 400 active solar businesses here in the state actively right now. And, really these numbers they're truly are going to have an impact fully across the entire spectrum. Unfortunately, many of the folks throughout Florida have been faced with, these made up numbers, the premise has been disingenuous. The ads are going out, they're attacking rooftop solar, from these monopoly utilities. And we're just seeing that this is not the way that the solar industry actually is. So we know the industry's strong. We know it's diverse, just like our state. I'm hearing loud and clear. Our contractors are hearing loud and clear. We've been working with the legislator to let voters know, hey, we want solar choice. Voters clearly want it. Most of the people support this, and they want solar jobs. 40,000 jobs across the state is extremely important. So for us specifically, our call to action has been since December, really, as an organization. We need to take action immediately. Call your legislators. Call them, email them. I've been emailing, I've been talking to people. We really need to be voting no on House Bill 741 and also the Senate Bill 1024 against net metering.
Thank you so much, Josh. And thank you for all your work on this. Thanks to everybody for being here today. For folks tuning in, if you have questions about the impacts of the bill or how to get involved during this critical week, please let us know in the comment section wherever you're streaming us. Now we want to dig in and answer some questions. So let's turn to the first question, which is, where do things stand right now? And I'm going to kick this one off. So the House bill HB 741 has passed through all of its the 3 House committees, and it's now on the House floor. Actually, it's up for a vote potentially today. Also yesterday, the Senate took up the Senate version of this bill, and it passed through its final committee stop there as well. And so now it will be moving to the Senate floor for a final vote. While both bills are different in approach and have been changed with amendments over time, ultimately, neither of these bills promise to keep the rooftop solar industry thriving in Florida. And that's why it's so important to call your legislator and make sure they know that this bill will kill jobs and will eliminate solar choice for Floridians. Any other thoughts from the panelists on just kind of where we're at in this particular moment today on these bills?
I'll say this, Katie. I know we're not where we want to be. We're definitely leaps and bounds ahead of where we've been from where we started with everything. So I thank the legislators for taking a lot of steps to get us to where we're at, but it's still not nearly close enough. We're still far enough away from where the industry really will thrive. And as SEIA, we've been fighting hard, really, really hard to make sure that these bills do not go through. And as a distributor in this industry, the contractors that I'm talking to every single day, we're not where we need to be. We definitely need the public support at this point in time. We have fought to the step that we can do right now and do everything that we can. We're going to continue that fight. We're still going through. We're actively involved. I know there's people that are still up there in Tallahassee right now that are doing everything that they can do every day. Every hour is important right now in this part of the legislative session. So we're nowhere near done, but we definitely want support of the outside public to help us with this fight right now at this point in time. We've got a couple more steps that are going. Like Katie, you just said. Just passed the last committee meeting on the Senate. It's already passed the House. It was discussed on the House floor yesterday. I was actively trying to watch both streams at the same time. It was a little bit much, but we've still got a couple more steps along this fight.
So that leads me to our second question, which is, what will happen if these bills pass?
Yeah, kind of going through this and looking at it, first and foremost, our step from day one has been, we hope that the legislators reject this anti-solar legislation. There's been a lot of talks about it, but it is still definitely anti-solar. We still have time to reject or significantly change this legislation. Hasn't been voted on fully. We still have reconciliation. So there is the possibility of ensuring that this keeps, Florida fair, giving us the solar choice. However, if these bills as they stand today continue to go through, if they get passed on the House floor, if they get passed on the Senate floor, it is going to look to go to the governors to get signed into law. At that point in time, we're definitely going to be asking, Governor DeSantis to step in and veto this. We really hope that he's watching closely. We've been reaching out to him directly, understanding how, popular rooftop solar is for homes, churches, small businesses, schools. There's so much public benefit across the entire state that really gets from rooftop solar. So we're really hoping that, Governor DeSantis does see that and, chooses to veto this. And I know that I'm not the only one that sees that. George, I believe you guys have seen some polls and have done some studies kind of talking about this as well.
Sure. In my conversations with a lot of Republican and conservative activists, they're all for this. For the average person, this simply makes sense. And you'll see that the polling shows this as well. A recent Mason-Dixon poll found that 84% of Florida voters support net metering, and 68% of Floridians think public utilities should make it easier for Floridians to install residential solar. It's obvious that Floridians want solar choice, and it is obvious that this is an important issue to all voters, not just liberal voters. This is not a partisan issue, and I encourage all my fellow conservatives to reach out to your lawmakers, reach out to the governor, and remind them that you are a conservative and that you want to continue to have choices when it comes to energy solutions.
Thank you both so much for that. So there's been a lot of talk about fixed charges and fees in this bill. Why are charges on solar customers something that y'all are concerned about?
Yeah, Josh, I'll give you a break here for this one.
Thanks, Steve.
As a business owner, our sales process involves predictability for the customer. Our customers know when they purchase a system that for the next 20 years, they've got a predictability on what it's going to cost to maintain the system, how much energy they're going to make, because it's a simple math calculation. When we start adding in things like fixed costs or other things that are ethereal or out there in the middle of nowhere, then you lose predictability on the cost of a system, and customers begin to get frustrated, and you lose customers because they don't know what's going to happen from year to year, of how much they're going to charge us as a solar customer, or the customer, are they going to add a $50 fee for solar customers, even though I don't use their energy? And it's really, it's a loophole that currently is in this amendment that's in place right now, that's going to the floor, that even if we get a couple year reprieve at our current state of 1-to-1 net metering, customers are going to be concerned that, hey, that's all going to change. I mean, if you just look at things like Duke Energy, who just added this $30 minimum charge for customers, you can see that that's going to impact, $360 a year. Every customer now has to pay, regardless whether they use all the energy, any energy from the utility company. So these are things that just should not be involved. And we've made arguments on the committee hearings. We've tried to make our position known that these fixed fees need to be withdrawn. But at this point, they seem to have made their way closer to the final bill.
Seems like too, I have seen these fixed charges go into effect in states like Alabama and Georgia. And, even if you do have a decent credit for solar exports, you can wipe out the value proposition of rooftop solar just with a monthly charge. I mean, we see that in neighboring states, and I don't think many people in Florida want to look to Alabama as the model for how to invest in clean energy, but that's potentially the path that we're going down here, right? So I want to take a question from somebody who is calling in or streaming online. So M. Taylor asked, how can we lobby harder to protect solar rights?
Well, I'll start off. I think first and foremost, SEIA has a great website where they give you the points of contact for your local representatives and the representatives that are contributing to this bill. I think first and foremost, you have to send at minimum send an email. You have to call their office and let them know what your thoughts are about this bill and find ways to participate. I mean, we had a great Save Our Solar rally a couple of weeks ago. And unfortunately, it seems like the news media 15 minutes ago, it seems like it's gone. And, we may have to have another one. But I think you just need to stay involved, engage, go to the SEIA website, use that link to find out who your representative is. Even if they are supporting or, they're supporting a net metering, you need to make your voice known and say, hey, we need to continue to do this and reach out to their compadres and do the same. So I'll leave it to the rest of the folks to add more.
Yeah, just echoing off of Steve, the SEIA website really we have a toolkit. You can go there, flasia.org/toolkit. You can get some of the main talking points that we've already discussed here. But this is the week to call. You've got to call your senators. You have to call your representatives. I was just texting with a representative's aide yesterday while it was actively getting discussed on the floor, trying to continue to sway them to vote no against this, and not just sway that individual. They also have those relationships. I mean, the legislature is full of relationships, and they all talk to each other. They know where they stand. They know what they can do. It very much helps to follow up if you're a constituent in their district, to call and email. And guess what? You can email every day. You can just keep emailing them. Let them know. Until this bill finally gets put into law, there's still time to act. We can still continue to lobby harder. And that's the individual, the public that's doing that. That's also outside. We have, different people that are involved directly in Tallahassee, meeting face-to-face with these, representatives and senators and trying to do everything that we can. So the public that we need to do right now is we need to reach out, call your senator, call your representative, email them, and make sure that they understand that you do not support this legislation and that you want to kill these bills. Bruce, you wanted to say something as well, I think. Yeah.
You kind of took the words right out of my mouth, Josh. Just to echo what you said, there's still time to act. This is the week to make calls, to be active. And I think it's important that they know it's not coming just from our business sector. It's coming from homeowners as well, who want to keep that right to have access and to make choices. And we don't necessarily need these kind of unnecessary regulations kind of being put in place when they're not going to protect any consumers. They're not going to protect businesses. We're basically discussing, and we want to tell our senators and our lawmakers not to strangle what could potentially be one of the fastest growing industries that Florida has seen in quite some time. And we don't want to take that from our citizens. There's a lot of money to be made here, and a lot of, there's a lot of protection, environmental protection to be gained from this as well. So I think it's twofold, and that's why you see the alignment between both parties. It's nonpartisan. Everyone kind of sees the value in this. So let's make sure they know that.
I will absolutely second that. I mean, I know a lot of us have been spending time in the Capitol and talking to legislators, and very frequently one of the things we hear is, my phone is ringing off the hook about this, or I've gotten so many emails about this. And I know we can get, kind of depressed about the political process sometimes, but it really does make an impact when they're hearing from their constituents about an issue that their voters care about. So please take the time to act today. These bills are moving really quickly, and we need all hands on deck. So the next question is from Arlie from Facebook, who asked, at this point, is it feasible that the bill won't pass at all? Or is it all about making amendments to make it less detrimental? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, there's always the possibility that it will not pass, and that's what we're pushing for. I mean, we're still actively fighting that this bill does not pass. Like I said earlier, there's still 3 stops at least. It's got to be approved in the House, it's got to be approved in the Senate, and then we have Governor DeSantis. So there definitely is that. The issue for us as an organization in FLOSIA, it's not like there's one magic amendment that fixes this bill, and we're like, you know what, as an industry, we really appreciate this that solar is going to thrive and survive. There's not one magic, solution for this at this point in time. We just fundamentally disagree with this bill. There's probably 10 different things that we cannot get behind. A lot of things have already been discussed. We've looked at the fixed fees. I mean, Steve brought it up. We're already starting to field calls because, we've seen mandatory fees, minimum fees in both FPNL and Duke territory. I just saw TECO's raising their rates. I just read an article about that. So we're seeing that the cost of solar is continuing to rise. These bills going forward are just going to continue to prevent Floridians getting the choice to choose solar independence. And so, this bill in any form that it is in right now, even with 1 or 2 small adjustments, amendments, aren't going to make it. So we are trying to actively kill these bills in every way that we possibly can. And that's still what we're pushing for. So there is still a possibility, I will say that.
Thanks, Josh. Our next question is from Tim, and he's asking, what about speaking to lawmakers about what matters to them? For example, tax revenue. Can y'all talk about some of the efforts to, talk about this in terms of lawmakers' own priorities?
I'll start off. Tim, I really appreciate that question. I think it's a great question. Members, if you've been watching this since December, like some of us have, and been a part of the discussion, and Katie, you've been deeply involved in this as well. You know very well that we have taken every plausible and valid factual argument to the table, to the floor, to address all the valid concerns and issues related to solar, the benefits. But we have strongly, we all know it's fallen on deaf ears for the most part. So, all we can say at this point, I think, is if this fight continues from our side, people continue to make their voices known. They are active. They're engaged with their representative. They know that we mean business. Because as all of us have realized, this was not a fight we brought to the table, but it's a fight we have to have right now. And we are going to stay engaged with it. That's why we're having this discussion today. We want you who are listening in, to get motivated to be a part of this fight. Your rights, if you don't have solar and you want solar in the future, you want your kids to have solar in the future, you're going to have to stay engaged in this battle. And frankly, we may lose the next couple of weeks, but this battle is just starting, and I think it behooves us to just stay engaged and to keep fighting what we need to do. So I'm sorry, I'm really getting a little excited about this. So
it's good, I love it. Okay, the next question we've got is specifically for George. This is from Jeff Green at Facebook. He's saying, please express to our fellow conservative, libertarian, Republican family that this is a property rights issue, period. Unless the state legislature is going to pay people's mortgages, they shouldn't dictate what a property owner does on their land. Love to know if you've got thoughts on this.
Yeah, certainly. If someone wants solar, they should be allowed to have solar, quite simply. We should not be setting up all of these roadblocks to prevent people from having solar if that's what they would wish to have. On another note, I was talking to a realtor the other day, and I told her about this net metering battle that was going on. And the first words out of her mouth were, "Oh my God, no one's going to want to have solar anymore." And she had no knowledge about this whatsoever. And that's another thing that I would encourage people to do, is to educate your fellow citizens and people that you're talking to about this issue, because quite frankly, the average person probably does not know a lot about net metering. And when they learn more about it, it just makes sense. And I think that's something that we could all do, not just conservatives.
let's talk about where this bill came from, why this is even being proposed at this point. There hasn't been a study on the costs and benefits of rooftop solar at the Public Service Commission in Florida. So, what's really driving this?
Katie, that's just a really good question that I think we've all been trying to figure out, and that's been part of the discussions that I've had with multiple legislators on. Why now? What is proving that this needs to happen at this point in time? When we look at market penetration of what solar is, everybody talks. The discussion that we're getting is, there's a cost shift, and to go to George's point and that conservative and Republican view is, well, we want to prevent a cost shift, and that's a conservative standpoint, and I think that that's where a lot of this has been based on. But the cost shift, the data just doesn't show that it actually pans out. We're at 0.8% market penetration across the entire state of Florida at this point in time. We've had solar has been really been around. Net metering's been around since about 2008. We just have not seen that growth to mandate that this is required now. The PSC has done no studies whatsoever on this cost shift. They've not talked about where we actually are seeing this cost shift. We don't see their math. We haven't seen anything that shows that this really needs to be the case. And right now, I just don't see that we really need to have this bill at this point in time. Anything that's tied to an annual basis and not market penetration really kind of puts this bill, in my opinion, it lays this bill flat, because it doesn't show actually if you're having an argument, it's not following that argument to its logical conclusion. Really, I'd love to see a study. I'd love to see the PSC study this for a year or 2 years. Really understand what this means for Florida. I mean, that's what we're worried about. We're worried about Florida. We're worried about, the people of Florida. We're worried about everybody in this. Everybody's claiming this is for, to save a cost shift that's going to be put on low to moderate income people. I know Vote Solar has done many studies kind of showing the math of those people. And I think you might be able to speak to that a little bit better than I, but the amount of income per household, the majority of this is actually for low to moderate income families, that have really taken advantage of solar over the last couple of years. And that's, I'm sure Steve has seen that, veterans, people that are on pensions, people that have not been, that it's not the high income individuals that are worried about their monthly utility bills. They're not. They just pay it. They don't think about it. The money automatically comes out of their account. It's the low to moderate income people that really require this at this point in time. They can go in and they can say, instead of a fluctuating monthly bill that I have from a utility, I know that I can reduce that cost every month, put this on a loan. After that loan is paid off, have energy independence, where I am definitely not paying into it anymore, and be able to put, even $20 to $50 back into their pocket every single month. Those are groceries. Those are groceries for, weeks for some individuals, for a lot of families. And so that's why, why now? I don't see the benefit of this bill at this point in time. I really don't.
Josh, I think you're exactly right. Not many folks who are wealthy are worried about a 7 to 10% return on their money. It's the everyday folks are looking at this going, hey, I can get rid of my electric bill and still make 7 to 10% on the money I invested. Whereas I've talked to many of folks who make a lot more money than I do, and they're saying, well, if I'm not making double-digit return on my money of 15 or 20%, it's not worth my investment. It just doesn't make sense. And I have to, this argument about the argument that folks on the floor have been making of why they're pushing this bill and it's hurting the poor just doesn't pass the muster. A simple economics argument, the old demand and supply curve. If we put more supply on the grid when you're capturing all the energy we need from my home and the energy for the next door neighbor, your demand goes down. Therefore, price goes down. So it's benefiting folks of lesser income. And unfortunately, somehow the folks who were originally sponsoring this bill have forgotten the whole economics argument about supply and demand, and they've thrown that out the window and tried to convince everybody that supply and demand doesn't matter. But in fact, it does, and solar is just a part of that solution. So anyway, I'm off my soapbox. You guys go ahead.
No, I do want to speak to this because I think it's important what you both just said, that in the absence of a study proving why this is necessary, when we just look at the basic supply and demand factors of this, it doesn't make sense. And it leads me to speculate that there are interests out there that want to corner the market. They want to eliminate competition, which is fundamentally anti-American in the sense. You have to have competition to give consumers a fair chance. So it seems that certain interests would like to eliminate solar from being on the market, so that, and as we know, they only like solar energy when they can control it, but they don't want us, the regular citizens, the low to moderate income people, to have control of our own energy choices. And as we know, energy bills are going to continue to increase, and they're going to eliminate our options to find any way to mediate that problem. So or mitigate that problem. So yeah, it's just it leaves a sour taste in my mouth to see our legislator trying to move in this direction, especially when the people are so unified in opposition. So I'm really hopeful that this bill will not pass.
Thank you so much for those important points. Facts matter, right? And one fact that we know is, so I'm from the Panhandle. Gulf Power, which operates in that part of the state, 41% of their customers with solar are in households making under $50,000. These are not wealthy people. These are people who are living paycheck to paycheck and trying to control rising electric bills. And, we hear from these folks, and some of them, like, they're not just investing in solar, they're investing in battery storage too, because they have to have access to electricity when the grid goes down to power their oxygen machines or to refrigerate their medications. And, they're tired of their electric system going down every time there's a hurricane. And, so there's a resilience value here, and even a public health value that we don't really talk about very much, but that is particularly important for low-income communities. And a lot of folks, now that we have solar leasing available in Florida, are able to go solar with no money down. And that's really been a game changer in terms of who we're seeing and who the solar customer is now in Florida. It's very different now than it was even 2 or 3 years ago. So, when we're talking about people's right to go solar, it's important that people realize, these are not wealthy people. These are people who are, really trying to control their bills and also do it in a way that's giving back to their communities and making it more resilient and more sustainable. So with that, let's go to our next question. This is from Michelle. And she's asking, is the bigger problem that utilities like FPL are for profit? Can we change the business model for these regulated utilities? And also, what is the Florida mandate on renewable energy? Who wants to take that one? Everyone's laughing because
I don't know that anybody wants to take that one per se.
Well, it's not a mandate. Some of the great things that Florida has done, they've passed the no tax on solar. That has been some. Let's look at some of the highlights. And then in 2008, they passed the net metering, basically 1-for-1 credit, which jump-started the industry. So, but what that's led to is that we now have, and this is an amazing number, we have almost 1% penetration in the state of Florida with regard to solar. So it only took us 14 years to get the 1%. And I sound a little facetious because I'm being facetious, that the fact that we are now taking on a industry that is in its infancy, the solar industry, it's in its infancy, that some big boys out there think that, hey, this is a major threat. And they're throwing a lot of money, and folks who are watching the money go across the table know there's a lot of money on the table being thrown at to try and kill this progress that we made here in Florida so far, just to get the 1%. And it's troubling. Everybody's listening on this call. No, it's very troubling, but that's where we are right now, that we are such a threat to this giant that's out there that they're going to throw millions of dollars on the table to try and squelch it, knowing darn right that's not going to happen, because Florida's love choice. As a conservative on this other side, he can tell you conservatives love choice and freedoms, and people want to have their freedoms to go solar. This may be a speed bump for us, but it's not going to, it's just going to slow us down a little bit. We're going to keep moving. So I'm sorry, you're off, Josh. Go, you say something.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I don't know that it's necessary for us to look at changing the business model of FPL. I don't want to get into that discussion. I don't want to talk about that in this. When we're looking at this, really what we need to focus on is how this is going to really affect the industry as a whole, specifically solar, and what we can do to protect solar. Just like Steve said, we're at 1%, which is a great number. Let's be honest. 1% for rooftop solar is fantastic. We're seeing penetration. We're seeing the effects of this, but it is still drastically lower than some of the nation's leading states that have this and other countries that have rooftop solar as well. So at this point in time, renewable energy is the way of the future. I always say, it allows me to scratch two itches in a business sense. One, I get to do the clean energy, promote renewable resource, everything like that. On the other side, as a business, it is growing, it is thriving. It allows us to bring a large economic impact, billions and billions of dollars back to the state of Florida, tax revenues that come back to the state of Florida, income that goes to the families that we employ. We have 175 different families that we employ personally here in CED. I've hired over half of them. Like, this is a real impact that we have. And with that being said, like, what Florida needs is not like, hey, let's change what FPL does. Let's make sure that we focus on what we are able to control, giving the Floridians the opportunity to have utility independence and show and be able to invest in something that they can really take off with long term. And solar being that.
Absolutely. And I will just say this about monopoly utilities because, moderator's prerogative. It is a broken system when customers are, investing in things like LED light bulbs and solar panels, and that is viewed as a threat by a monopoly utility that has been given that monopoly by our state government, right? Because it was deemed in the public interest. We're having a breakdown here when, us taking control of our bills and lowering our bills is something that's actually bad for their bottom line. And there are a lot of states that are looking at this and trying to figure out how do we rework that business model to align these things. We want people to invest in conservation measures. We want to see more solar. That shouldn't be something that's viewed as a threat by monopoly utilities, but right now it is. So, there is an underlying issue here that needs to be resolved. Obviously, today, just call your legislator because we need to stop these bills from getting passed. But, I think there are important public policy issues underneath this of, at some point we've got to start asking if these utilities are really acting in our best interest, in the public's interest. And if they're not, then, I don't think it's consumers' behavior that needs to change. I think it's the utilities' behavior that needs to change. And with that, I will get off of my soapbox.
I do want to echo one quick thing, Katie, and that's to Steve's point is, solar's not going anywhere. We're going to be here. This bill, there is going to be a definite economic impact, but as the utility is trying to attack us and go through everything, we have pivoted time and time again as an industry over the last several decades. We will continue to thrive. There are businesses in SEIA that have been around. Like I said, we've been around since 1977. That's older than I've been alive. So we've been around longer than I have personally been alive, and we will continue to be here. Businesses will pivot. We will continue to grow. Solar will still be a part of it, and we're not going anywhere. As an industry, as companies, we will continue to fight this fight in the legislature. Even if these bills do go through as they currently are, that just means the fight is continuing. We will do everything in our power to change this legislation to get it to where it is equitable for homeowners to have solar. That is it. We will be here. We will continue to be here. We will fight this fight as long as we possibly can.
Well said. So Steve, I'm going to start with you on our next question, which is why is this important to our veteran and military community?
Hey, Katie, thank you. That is a superb question, super important. I think the conservative group here has mentioned that there's 40,000 jobs at stake here. And nationally, there is a statistic that came out that 9% of the nation's solar industry jobs are veterans. And with that 9% of the 40,000 here in the state of Florida only, we're talking about almost 4,000 veteran jobs, folks who've served this country for the last 10, 5 years, even if they just did 3 or 4 years, came out of the military with an expectation that they're going to be able to contribute to this society. And they chose this industry to join and contribute their energy, their time, and effort to making a better future. Because they know in their hearts, they feel confident that they're making a better future. So on behalf of the nearly 4,000 veterans, having served myself for 26 years as a SEAL in the military, from Somalia to Iraq to Afghanistan, folks who served in these fights and folks who may be serving in the next battle we have going on in there in Europe, they want to know that they're fighting for a cause. And these veterans that are supporting the solar industry are fighting for the cause to keep their livelihood intact and to do what's good for the country and the state.
Thank you for that, Steve. So we're getting close to time, and I want to give folks a chance to just give any final thoughts and parting words. And let's see. Let's start with you, George.
Sure. I just would like to reiterate that, it's still not too late to try to reach out to your legislators. And after that, the next stop will be the governor. And there's an email address associated with the governor's office and his staff as well. And to not be bashful about contacting them as well and their phones. And I would just, can't say it any better than what Steve said regarding the jobs and the veterans, but I'd also like to remind everyone that these are jobs that can't be outsourced. So that's another important thing to keep in mind when we think of these 40,000 rooftop solar jobs that are being threatened by this legislation. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you. Bruce, parting thoughts.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think we have to be clear that this legislation would hurt Florida, period. The Sunshine State would be eliminating the ability for so many people to use solar energy. And I think that would just devastate our economic outlook for the foreseeable future. I think it's going to put us behind competitively, not only with other states, but even on just a regional scale. It's going to be a disastrous effect if this bill passes. So I think, like everyone has said already, we need to make sure that we're given that sense of urgency, that we care about our state, we care about our fellow citizens and their rights to have access. And this is not something that will be taken lightly. You don't want to be the person who voted for setting Florida back a decade on solar energy.
Thank you, Bruce. Steve, any parting thoughts from you?
Yeah, thank you, Katie. I'll echo what the guys have already said, but I'll also say part of voting for solar, if you haven't gotten it, is to get solar. Obviously Central Florida, put our, Tampa Bay Solar would love to be able to service, but there are a lot of great companies out there that are serving customers around the state that deserve your vote. And part of that vote is investing in solar system yourself. We know that by the end of this year, if this bill passed as originally formed, you could still gain the benefits of having solar for the next couple of decades. So in addition to contacting your folks, get your solar system on your house, because that's also a vote to utility companies to tell them we still demand solar here in Florida. So thank you very much for hosting and the opportunity to talk with the group today.
Great point. Thank you, Steve. And Josh, we'll close it out with you. What you got?
Yeah, I want to thank, everybody else on this call. I want to thank you, Kitty, as a moderator, and everybody else for the insight. I appreciate everybody watching this. It's been really great for me to be a part of and kind of talk about what SEIA as an organization really want to see. As I said right before, we are not going anywhere. We will continue to be here. Just like Steve said, let's get more solar on more homes, really show that this is important for us as an economy, as Floridians, as the Sunshine State. The Sunshine State without solar just doesn't make sense in my mind. We will be here. We will continue this fight no matter what the outcome is over the next couple of days, couple of weeks. And really appreciate everybody's support in, helping us fight this fight every day and every hour that we are right now.
So that's all the time we have for today. Thank you all for tuning in at home and sharing the virtual solar town hall. Thank you for your great questions. If we weren't able to answer them live, we'll work to respond to your questions in the chat today. And you'll be able to share this video with your friends later today on the same social channel. Thank you to our guests for joining us today and sharing your perspective. The most important thing you can do is act. Legislative session ends on March 11th, but as you heard, this legislation is moving fast. We could have a vote on the House bill today and a vote on the Senate bill in the next few days. So please stay connected, take action at savesolar.org or text FLSUN to 33339. Stay well and be safe. We'll leave you today with a video from our Save Our Solar rally, where hundreds gathered in Tallahassee for the state's largest clean energy rally in history. Let's keep that energy going and keep solar growing in Florida. Thank you all, and we'll see you soon.
Save our solar! Save our solar! Save our solar!
Having the right to harvest the sun is a big deal. Having the right to harvest and use that energy is a big deal because it's our jobs. It's not just our jobs, it's our careers. It's not just our careers, but it's our passion.
The state of Florida should be encouraging solar energy production because it does bring jobs to Florida and because it is the right thing to do.
What do we want?
Rooftop solar!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Rooftop solar!
When do we want it?
Now!
When a solar customer puts solar on their roof, they are offering an incredible service to their community, and these bills are trying to demonize our industry and act like we're not paying our fair share.
Today, we are fighting for the future of the Sunshine State. We're conservative and liberal and sometimes fiercely independent. These might seem like big differences, but solar isn't political. 93% of Floridians support the economic backbone of solar net metering.
Save our